your disease symptoms may not show unless until and unless there's enough damage which has already been done. So, in today's live session, I'm going to share with you why, if you're already diagnosed with any kind of chronic disease, you need to prevent further damage by not waiting for symptoms to develop, by taking proactive action. And if you don't have an exact diagnosis, this is particularly true in the case of autoimmune conditions where getting a proper, accurate, and exact diagnosis is notoriously difficult. You can still take you can still take steps today so that you can prevent your symptoms worsening in the future, right? So either way, you're going to benefit from this session, so make sure that you stay till the end. And if you like what I have to say, make sure that you sign up, schedule an application call with me. This is a free 30 minutes phone call, wherein we sort of discuss your suitability for my 6 month immersive and transformative coaching program for women with primarily autoimmune conditions. It's called Healing from Within. So that we can assess, right, whether we are a good fit, and this is what this program is what you're looking for. Because again, even in my own coaching practice, I've seen time and time again that we tend to wait for certain disease symptoms to develop, and as a result, by the time we seek help, by the time we take corrective measures, a lot of damage has already been done, and then it becomes that much more difficult to reverse the damage, right? So if you can, right at the very beginning, or whatever stage that you're already in, if you can prevent that further damage, whether or not you have those symptoms right now, is extremely beneficial. And I'll start with my own story. The main reason that I got into this profession, this health coaching profession, from being a salesperson, in the financial services world, was my daughter's severe health issues. And one of the key, things that I found, which at that time I did not really realize, was instrumental in not us not realizing that she has these issues, was that she did not really have many symptoms till her eczema sort of went through the roof, right? So by that time we were left struggling and grappling, trying to contain the symptoms, trying to manage. Then we had to put her on oral medications. But till then, we honestly, but the run up to that had happened over a period of time. Now I know that, I understand and appreciate that. But there were no major digestive symptoms per se, even though her immune system was, sort of getting dysregulated over a period of time due to her gut, issues. But we didn't even realize that, right? We never paid attention. We didn't know how to notice all that. But now that I do, I make sure that I want to share it with you so that you don't make the same mistakes, or that you can sort of take preventive measures and corrective measures today, right? Whether or with or without a diagnosis. So what is at the crux of all these kind of chronic diseases, which is kind of the modern plague of the 21st century? And I, of course, work primarily with women with autoimmune conditions, so I'll give examples of that as well. But the crux of beneath all of these issues is typically a modern lifestyle, and this modern lifestyle basically includes things like a nutrient poor diet, right? So it might not be that you're having a poor diet on purpose, but it just is the fact that the soil has the soils and the farming practices, modern farming practices, use of huge amounts of pesticides and fertilizers have ensured that our food is actually lacking in a lot of nutrients, or the soil has become depleted in the first place. So it's about either not getting enough from your food, even if you're having so-called healthy foods, or it might be that some of us may be having a whole lot of processed foods, etc. It is also high levels of stress that we live with, and again, it's not it can be a combination of physiological stress, and we of course are not being chased by tigers anymore, but certainly we are exposed to toxins. We are having foods which our immune system is not able to tolerate, or our digestive system is not able to digest or break down. So there can be different reasons for physiological, as physiological stress. But we also have psychological stress, where we are constantly ruminating and worrying about something which may or may not come true, right? So there are different aspects of high levels of stress. Low sleep, poor quality of sleep. We may not be prioritizing sleep as one of the key contributors to long term health. And because of the fast paced modern lifestyle that we all lead, sleep is usually something sort of that gets waylaid. So that's a huge issue with most of us. Recreation, but a numbing recreation, like TV watching, Netflix binging. We don't realize how damaging these can be in the long run. One-off situation is not what I'm talking about here, because we may not realize that while it's a good thing to sort of have some kind of recreation practices, these are more numbing down. We are not really sort of being able to, our brain and our body is not really able to relax the way it would if we were sort of doing some deep breathing, if we were taking a nap, if you were going for a slow walk, if we were having conversation with our loved ones, right? They're completely two different things. So that is one very common thing. Unprecedented exposure to toxins, of course, because simply because the level of toxin exposure has increased exponentially over the last couple of decades, and the kind of toxins that we're exposed to, whether it's in our air, water, foods. In foods, it can be in the form of preservatives, additives, food colorings. It's are simply unprecedented, right? So, and that's creating a huge problem. And of course, growing risk of infections, whether it's from this particular pandemic, but even pre-pandemic, it would be more of infections, because we are using so much of antibiotics. So there is an kind of issue with forgetting the term, but resistance to that, right? Antibiotic resistance. So that's a huge issue. So there are many things at play here. So what happens is that, and if we talk about, say, environmental triggers such as mold, such as gluten is an environmental trigger, actually. The kind of wheat that we're consuming right now and the amount of wheat that we're consuming, or other toxins, if you take in any of this which does not really suit your body, and your immune system thinks it's a threat, just remember that your immune system is activated to protect you 24 by 7, whether you realize it or not, right? And most of the time it is working in the background, so you don't even feel anything. But what happens is that this is normal immunity. But what happens is that, because we don't feel anything, we think that everything is okay, right? But if this level of insult, that means the amount of exposure keeps increasing, exponentially, which is happening in most of our cases, we may start experiencing some kind of mild irritation, sore throat, nasal congestion, especially if it's in the winter, and if you live in a highly polluted place, you might have a bit of sore throat. So we typically think of it as minor irritants, and but some of us may not even have that really, right? So that's what I mean by that. You may not have any symptoms, and because disease has not really developed yet. And even if we have these minor irritations, as we call it, maybe a slight headache one day, because we've not slept enough, there can be many reasons, or we are dehydrated, we tend to ignore these, or we try to medicate them away, right? So this is what I mean by that. You may not even have symptoms, real massive symptoms, and I'll sort of just take you through that. And of course, I've already discussed on the stress part of it. But I want you to think about this. Do you honestly think that you wake up one fine morning with a disease diagnosis? Of course not, right? Especially where a chronic disease, and I'm talking about chronic diseases here. Chronic diseases are usually decades long processes. That means that it has taken years and years to reach a stage where you're officially diagnosed with a particular condition, right? And it has, before that, there were many other indicators along the way, but if we are simply not taught how to pay attention to that, and it develops in a step by step sequence, and you can actually learn how to nip it in the bud long before symptoms develop, right? So that is what I'm talking about today, that you do not and you should not wait for symptoms to develop and get a disease diagnosis at the end before you start taking steps. And I'll give you an example. In the case of autoimmune disease, we have something called a spectrum, right? So it's a spectrum of autoimmunity is a progressive state of disease where it runs from vibrant health at one end to degenerative disease on the other end, right? So most of us are somewhere in between, if we are on the autoimmune spectrum. So it's a broad range of varied but related stages that build on each other. So at any point in time, you're either moving towards vibrant health or you're moving towards degenerative disease, right? Worse and worse health issue, health. So this is how we suffer from autoimmune damage long before we are diagnosed with autoimmune disease. And in the case specifically for autoimmune conditions, it can take years and years to get an exact diagnosis. So this becomes even more critical in the case of any kind of autoimmune disease which is at play. That means that if you have any any indications that you may be sort of experiencing any kind of autoimmune flare, there might be one particular antibody which has increased, etc., and you have any indication, you need to start paying attention, because this in between area between vibrant health and degenerative disease, it is there is a whole area of possibility, right? So you can move actively steps to move towards vibrant health. That is by making dietary choices, that is by making lifestyle choices, improving your sleep or prioritizing sleep for that matter, eating hygiene. So there are many things which are in your control which can lay the foundation for long term health creation. In fact, this is exactly what I teach in my 6-month coaching program. So again, if you are interested in knowing more and whether it fits your what you are looking for, because if you want to feel more energetic, if you want to have less pain, if you want to feel more confident in your own body's ability to heal from any kind of chronic disease, specifically autoimmune condition, then you need to understand how I can help you, because I've been doing this for a while. And by laying the foundations of long term health, by simplifying and making it easy for you, using a step by step method, I have a framework that I've developed over the years. You are able to take the steps without getting overwhelmed, and keep moving towards health rather than and move away from degenerative disease. So again, coming back to autoimmune spectrum, you will have people who are, there are two kinds of people who are on the spectrum, and some people will have a slight elevation in antibodies, and some people have noticeable symptoms. Others will have tremendously high level of antibodies with hardly any symptoms at all, right? But yet both these people are on the autoimmune spectrum, and they will continue to progress on that spectrum till they're diagnosed with a chronic disease. This is why it does not matter whether you notice symptoms or not. If you have elevated, but particularly in this particular case, if you have elevated antibodies, they are fueling degeneration, right? So that's happening at the background, whether you are able to notice it or not, which is why it does not really matter, and why you should not be waiting for any kind of symptoms to develop if you have any indication that something is wrong, even if it's a very minor irritation. And if the level of exposure to those triggers continue, then the immune system will keep on reacting more aggressively, and it'll create more inflammation. Then excess inflammation will cause damage to your cells, and then continued cellular damage will cause tissue damage. Continued tissue damage will cause organ damage and organ inflammation, and finally you reach a stage where you'll be diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. This is typically how an autoimmune disease progresses. So if I bring it back to what I was saying earlier, like a step-by-step framework, typically for most of us, what happens is that we are initial stages, we are driven, there's a deficiency-driven dysfunction. So if we are not getting enough nutrients from our food, if we are not getting enough rest, if we are exposed to too much of toxins, and typically all three work together, then we might have those minor irritations, or we may have anemia, we may have headaches or migraines, we may have depression. So all these things start at the beginning. Then we progress. If this continues, then we progress to actual gastrointestinal symptoms or disease, which is your IBS. It can be constipation, bloating, belching, right, where you actually have. But again, remember that not everybody sees all the steps and sees or notices all these symptoms. My daughter certainly did not have any digestive symptoms at all ever, even though her eczema was absolutely connected to her gut health. Then you reach as this progresses, then you reach inflammation. Then there's excess inflammation which takes place, which becomes chronic, which originates in your digestive tract, and then you start developing asthma. Maybe you have chronic fatigue, migraines, arthritis, fibromyalgia, eczema. This is where it got diagnosed for her. And if that progresses further, and if you don't take any steps to halt this progression and and you're still on the autoimmune spectrum, and the immune system dysregulation is still at play, then you go on to develop, whether it's Hashimoto's or lupus or multiple sclerosis or any of the other 80 odd autoimmune conditions. So I'm talking about autoimmune, but this is also the kind of progression for any kind of chronic disease, in a different manner. So I hope that you're getting some sense of what you need to look out for, whether or not you have an exact diagnosis today, and why you should not be waiting for symptoms before you start taking corrective measures. Because again, at the heart of immune dysregulation lies poor food, not lacking nutrients, toxins, because that depletes nutrients, it increases stress for your body, and it impairs metabolism and impairs detoxification. So it's a triple whammy kind of a thing, and of course, high stress levels. So all of these then challenge our immune system's ability to tolerate intelligently. That means the immune system should not either be underreactive or overreactive. Neither of it is, sort of what you're looking for, right? Okay. So how do you then approach this, right? So approaching you need to approach this in terms of looking at symptoms as a gift, right? So the gift of having symptoms, no matter what they are, no matter how minor they are, will force you to take notice and do something to address a problem, because you will realize probably now after listening to this session is that there is usually an underlying imbalance, and there is some problem which is there, which is why you have those minor irritations to begin with, or maybe it's a minor symptoms, and it is a window of opportunity for you to do something about it. And because these symptoms can be completely unconnected, right? So, and that is why we don't really connect the dots and realize that they all stem usually from the gut, but there's something is happening below the surface. So before there is so much damage that happens before you get a disease diagnosis, then if you can start paying attention and look at your symptoms as a gift, then you can do something about it, right? This is completely in your control. You can start making different lifestyle choices, dietary choices, etc. So in functional medicine, which is a stream that I practice, where we address the root causes of any chronic disease. We try and prevent disease. We ensure that we are able to participate in our body's own healing process. We say that a headache is a blessing. It's exactly for this reason, because it tells you that something is wrong and it has to be sort of addressed. So whenever, and there's there have been a few times when I've had a headache, but instead of taking sort of a painkiller or relieving the pain, I typically just ask myself and try and understand whether it's a lack of sleep. Maybe I didn't sleep very well, or I slept late, for whatever reason, or I did not have enough water. And I usually find that for me, at least, these are the usually two most common suspects, right? So it will be different for you, but this is how you need to start addressing any kind of minor irritation that simply come out, sort of seemingly come out of nowhere, right? But they are not. They're actually connected. So they are messengers from your immune system letting you know that there is something out of balance. So now, if you already have a diagnosis, right, you've already been dealing with symptoms for a while. So now what do you do? So what you can do is prioritize and simplify the health creation process. Again, this is something that I do with my clients, and you whether you sort of schedule any call with me, or whether you work with me or not, you can certainly take help and support from a health coach, from maybe a functional medicine practitioner who can help you, with this. And because what is missing is the awareness about which key areas of your health that you need to focus on. Rather than trying out many different things and trying to manage your symptoms, you will need to figure out what areas of your health needs is your priority right now. And this focused step by step approach is the key to creating long term health without overwhelm. And the other thing that you need to keep in mind is that disconnection from. So you need to pay attention to your body without judgment. This we are increasingly disconnected from our bodies as we grow from young babies and young children into adults, and hence we are not able to tap into what our body truly needs to heal. Right? It's telling us all the time in the form of symptoms, but we are not really able to listen to it. So when we are start to tap into our body's wisdom, this inner voice, then we are able to figure out whether we need more certain foods, whether we need more sleep, more relaxation, naps, more breaks during the day, less exercise, not more. All kinds of unique requirements that is, that your body is asking you for to heal. So, once again, you don't need to wait for an exact diagnosis to do the following, right? Because you need to keep this in mind that laying the foundations of good health does not depend on your disease diagnosis. So, laying the foundation for good eating hygiene, which is extremely important for nutrient absorption, digestion and absorption and transportation, sleep hygiene, so that you get good quality sleep and wake up in the morning feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. So, laying the foundation of good health does not depend on what disease you have. Typically, you can, of course, customize it depending on what you're going through. Secondly, you can always start where you are with whatever you know about your health issues right now. So even those baby steps do matter. So even if you haven't connected the dots yet, even if you haven't figured out which key areas you need to prioritize, you can still get started with exactly where you are. And third, you can always get better at a physical, emotional, or spiritual level, because healing is an inside job. So whether or not a disease can be cured, whether or not a disease can be completely reversed, you can always get better at any one or all of these levels, right? So it does not depend on only your external circumstances and resources. So I will now, sort of leave you with this. Saying by Maza Dota. She said that healing is an art, it takes time, it takes practice, and it takes love. So once again, don't wait for any particular disease diagnosis. Don't wait for your symptoms in particular to develop before you start taking action today. You can start where you are. If you need some support, you can always schedule an application call with me for my 6-month coaching program. It's called Healing from Within, and it's for women with chronic diseases, specifically autoimmune conditions, who would like to um, feel more confident, energetic, and have less pain by supporting their body's healing process using a very simplified step by step approach. And I will be dropping in all these links below. So make sure that you check that out.